Hello, good evening, everybody. Hope you've all had a good day. And ready for a. Uh, this one's gonna be a bit more spoilery than usual, but it should be. It should still be a really fun time. Not gonna lie, I rushed to get this one done and then realized I had an extra hour, and I'm like, oh, I planned this well, and then freaked myself out. So if it still looks a little weird and janky, it's a me problem. But no, I hope you've all had a good day. This one will be a lot of fun to talk about. It is a first time read for me, and it was I think I managed to read it in one day. Uh, it's very much a page turner, and not in the fact of, oh, it's so gripping I can't put it down, but more in the fact of, this is so easy to read and it's so much fun. Um, which I know that seems like a very small distinction to make, but there is a difference. Um, and honestly, my hint from last time was less of a hint and more just like the synopsis of the darn thing. But yeah, I hope everyone's doing okay. Um, Life has just sort of happened. Some days it's more like, oh, this problem has happened. Cool, I can deal with that. This problem has happened. Cool, I can deal with that too. Um, and then there are days where I'm just like, there's too many problems. I can't deal with any of them. All right, unlike last time, it appears everything is working properly. Hooray! I think all my volumes are good. It looks like everything is working like it should. This will be a good time. So the book for this time is Cinder, and I will admit, this is a book. So this was a gift, um, but it's a book that's kind of been on my radar for a while because I like the cover, and then it was given to me, and it had a different cover than the one I had seen before. I'm like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, and I'm like, oh, but it's a really nice cover. So it's like it's hard to be like, oh, well, this wasn't the cover I was. I'm one of those people. Like real talk, there are certain books that I have where I broke down and bought the book because I wanted it, but it's not the cover I wanted. Um, oh, excuse me, a moment. Whew, sorry about that. um, and if I find those books with the cover I want, I will be buying them. I don't care that I already own the book. There are certain covers that I just like. This was not the cover I was expecting, but having read the book, it is a little more accurate to the actual book than the first cover. So that's interesting, but yeah. So the cover art is still really pretty, both the original and the one I have. So yeah. Let's get into it. No surprises today in that in a book called Cinder, it's going to be a retelling. Um, Into the usual. This is an entertainment and inform. I don't own the copyright to the works inside. This is just for fun. Hopefully, we'll all enjoy it. Um, Fair warning, this one will likely have some spoilers. I will try to keep any series spanning spoilers to a minimum. But part of what makes this book so good is that a lot of its stuff is either leaning into or subversions of expectations. And it, to explain why this is such a good book, I have to go into that a little bit more than I usually do. I tried to write this out without going. It was bad. It was like a bit robotic and stiff. So we are talking about Cinder by Marissa Meyer. Um, yeah, I don't need to linger on this page long. It's a one-word title. So Cinder was originally published by Fuel and Friends in 2012. It is the first book of the Lunar Chronicles. I have these as a box set, so for the record, they can be bought as a box set. You can buy them individually. They should all still be in print. They're pretty popular. So this is the original cover. This is the one that caught my eye originally. So when this first got on my radar, this was the cover that got on my radar. The cover artist is Rich Diaz. He's worked on branding for things like the Columbia Pictures brand, I Spy, Batman, and Scholastic. I Spy and Batman specifically are under Scholastic, so the trademark's under the Scholastic imprint. I wasn't able to determine if he did more than the branding marks for I Spy and Batman, if he did any of the actual illustrations inside, but I was able to definitively say he did the branding. So I love this cover. So this is gonna sound weird, but so the font is the same between the two covers, and I adore it, and it's like the best font ever. And I really love the stark color shift. All of the like original well, I can't say all, many. Let me big old caveat here. Many of the original publications for this series are this stark black, white, blue skin tone with red. And it's really eye-popping, and with this font, it's really noticeable, and it's really pretty, and I really like it. It just makes my brain happy. The other cover, this is the cover I have, is the 2013 cover by Squarefish, or published by Squarefish, I should say. Illustrated by Barbara Greslow. She was very difficult to find information on. I know she's the one who did the art for this because it says so on the inside of my book. But the only information I was able to find is that she's currently the art director for Highlight Press and Boyd Mills Press. But yeah, this artwork is great. I'm here for it. I love it. I think it's great. There is an interior. Well, it's an interior, but it is another picture, and it is fantastic. Definitely check this one out. If you are into some really cool, like, cyberpunk futuristic art. I didn't mention, I just realized I missed this on the other side. So this is a retelling. I'm going to get into that in a second. It is a futuristic retelling. Hence the very obvious robot bits. It's a lot of fun. It's a whole bunch of fun. This is a great cover. I really enjoyed this book. At some point, I would not be shocked if I cover any of the sequels on here, because I would love an excuse to read the sequels. Alright, so about the author. This seems like a lot. Also, I realize it's not set up the way I'd normally put this slide, but I will worry about that some other time. Marissa Meyer is the host of the Happy Writer podcast, and Cinder was her first novel. Prior to writing Cinder, she had been an editor, typesetter, and proofreader. I believe all of this is up in the Pacific Northwest, but I may be wrong about the location of all of this. I do know that is the current area of residence. She has a BA in creative writing and children's lit and a master's in publishing. Um, I'm going to say this now because I find it delightful, and I didn't know it until I was doing the research for the slide parts. She originally wrote fan fiction and did Sailor Moon fan fiction stuff, and that makes me so happy. And it's, yes, of course she did, when you actually read Cinder and you read some of the stuff that goes on, and like the name of the series is the Lunar Chronicles, and you're like, oh, of course she was a Sailor Moon person, because that makes absolute sense. um, it's delightful. I love it. Anyone who plays in other people's sandboxes and can learn from it is great. Um, and the fact that this series in particular is retellings of fairy tales and reimaginings of fairy tales, that lines right up perfectly for me. So what do you need to know about Cinder? Cinder is a reimagining of the fairy tale. It is Cinderella. The journey is the point in this book. I will get into that in a second. It has really likable characters. I think like 99% of these characters are likable, and the ones that aren't likable are the ones you're not supposed to like. But even those are still interesting. And then it is a story about personhood. What does it mean to be a person? So your main character is Cinder. Cinder is a cyborg in New Beijing. Humans and androids are normal and expected and common. Cyborgs are basically looked down upon. In the case of Cinder, she's basically owned by her stepmother. Stepmother's a little bit of a stretch because of that dynamic, but that is the general consensus. She's very smart. She knows how to take care of herself. The problem is literally coming in as she's a cyborg. Cyborgs are not considered people. What do you do with that? She's fantastic. So it's a retelling of Cinderella, and I will say right now, none of the twists in the story come from the fairy tale aspect, except for where they are subversions of it. You find out very early on that this is a retelling of Cinderella. Like, the whole thing starts with a foot that's too small on the table. That's like page 1. But one of the earliest twists, and one of the twists I like the most, is you're introduced to the stepsisters, and one of them is actually friendly. If you've ever seen Ella Enchanted and you saw how the stepsisters acted in that, not like that. It's not, oh, I'm secretly friendly, even though she is secretly friendly. It's much more about, I'm actually your friend, I just can't show my parent. But like, I'll come and hang out with you and the android, and we will have a good old time, and we will go scavenging together. And the quote unquote prerequisite for Cinder to be allowed to go to a ball is to repair the hovercraft, and for that she needs a mag belt. So, fun fact, this is where the whole cyberpunky futuristic bit comes in, really. A lot of things are not explained, and I love it. I'm here for it. Do not sit down and word vomit at me your exposition. Just drop it in naturally. And that's very much how this feels. Like, you have moments where Cinder mentally is frustrated with being a cyborg, and you get the impression from her and from the way other people react to her, oh, cyborgs aren't really liked. And then when you have like the mag belt they have to go get, they find a pumpkin-like car. So again, we are not hiding which fairy tale this is, with rats that have made their home in it. and it's like, oh, it runs on gasoline. There are no magnetic belts in this, and you're like, cool. So if the hovercraft she's looking for has a mag belt, that implies that things don't maneuver on ground level. Ground level is for people, and there's a hovercraft system. It's never really gone into. It's mentioned like all of 4 times, I think, in the whole novel. But every time it shows up for a reason. It's that kind of storytelling and that kind of retelling of Cinderella where there's no hiding it. You get like 5 chapters in and you're like, here's your main players. Here's your princess, here's your prince, here's your carriage, here's your mice, and here's this tiny foot. What more do you want from a Cinderella story? I probably should mention here that this is told from 2 points of view, one being Cinder's and one being the prince's. But through it all, Cinder is your focus. Like, even in the prince's parts, you know that you're seeing his perspective because of how it's going to affect Cinder later on, not because of his perspective, if that makes any sense at all. So the journey is the point. Stop me if you've heard this before. There's a highly transmittable infectious plague sweeping the globe. Yeah. I would like to point out this is published in 2012. Reading it in 2023, it hits very differently than it probably did in 2012. Nothing in this is extremely surprising. None of the twists this takes. Everything that has foreshadowing is, I'm not gonna say it's heavy-handed foreshadowing, but it is complete in that you can put the pieces together if you want. You don't have to. You don't have to really think ahead much at all. The pacing is nice through the whole thing. It's a very straightforward read. The little snarly bits are typically your emotional moments. And even then, it's the emotions that are hard to deal with. The happy moments fly. It's sadness and anger and injustice and those like caustic emotions where having them isn't a problem but letting them control you is. Those kind of emotions. Yeah, when those show up, you've got some problems going. There is a plague, and let me make sure. Where is the name of this thing? It is one of those words that's in here that you're like, I see where the base is coming from, but also it is letumosis. That is your disease that's running wild through this. And that leads into the next bit. So this has really likable characters. You've got your humans like Prince. So here, okay, real talk. The prince's name, I would pronounce it Kai. It may be Key. It's Kai. Welcome to these 3 letters can be pronounced multiple ways. I'm going to say Kai. If it's not Kai, I am very sorry. But you've got humans like Kai, like the stepmother, like the stepsisters. You've got androids. Cinder has a best friend who is an android in the employ, technically, of her stepmother, same as she is. And she like sneaks around and wears lipstick and ribbons and pearls and thinks she's a person, and it's lovely and delightful, and she is sassy. You've got like palace guard bot type people who are just like, I can't let you through because I can't let you through. And you're like, oh, but I need to get through. And you have like a nanny droid and you have all these sorts of things. Um, every single one of them has charm and personality. Um, Cinder is she is a wonderful character. She is full of hopes and dreams and doubts and struggles and stubbornness and refusal to see things the way they are because that's not convenient to her. And like, she's just, I hesitate to say relatable. She is a cyborg lady, but she is wonderful for all of that. The characters you don't like, you've got an evil queen, you've got the stepmother, you've got the stepsister who isn't Peony, you've got it's Pearl and Peony. You've got Pearl who is not likable at all. You don't like her, you don't like the evil queen, you don't like the stepmother. But even though you don't like them, they are interesting. Their stories are no less important to the tapestry of the world building than Cinder's, than Kai's, than Peony's, than the poor android whose name I've forgotten. Oh, where is she? Hang on. Where is her name? That's not her. Eco. I assume it's Eco. Could be Ico. I'm gonna say it's Eco. It's IKO. Look, I am bad at names with I vowels in them sometimes because I don't know if they're E's or I's. But so Eco. You've got all sorts of characters, and all of them are very enjoyable in their own ways. You've got the ones you don't like, you've got the ones you don't trust, and yet at no point are you like, oh, that's a boring person. You've got like two characters in this who are named all of twice, but they're only named because they're significant. It's very much one of those kind of stories. If the story tells you the name, they're important. It's not a uncommon thing in stories, but it's really nice to see it well done. It's kind of like the old animation shorthand of if it's a background thing, it can be super detailed. If it's a foreground thing and it looks a little simple, it's probably going to move. Kind of like that. Or, oh, this person is important because instead of, being a shadowy figure, they have color. Yeah. Oh, does this character have like accessories? That's going to be important later on, either as an identifier or they're going to get robbed. One of those kind of shorthands. Marissa Meyer very much takes advantage of the narrative shorthand of, hey, if they have a name, they're important. If they don't have a name, they're not important. So, and then your major theme, and this is where we get into some real spoilery spots, is personhood. What does it mean to be a person? What makes you a person as opposed to your position? As opposed to being a cyborg, because cyborgs are not treated like people, they are treated like things. Or as your familial role. Are you the daughter? Are you the son? Are you the help? In the cyborg's case, that's what she is. Cinder goes and makes money for the family. And gets treated like trash by 2/3 of that family. It's not nice. It's not pleasant. And Cinder very much, there's a bit of fight. Cinder sees herself as a person, but is that enough to make her a person? She is aware that the world doesn't see her as a person. Is it enough? if you are the only person who thinks you're a person. Or if you and an android, which is knowingly not a person, are the only people who think you're a person. And even then, Cinder treats Eco as a person. She's got personality. She wears lipstick when she can. She wears ribbons. Like, it's a repeated problem for most of the characters. Peony wants to meet the prince. Like, life goals, man. She wants to see the boy that she thinks is super pretty and is super popular, and all the girls want to meet him, and he's the crown prince. So yeah, there's that going for him too. And meanwhile, Cinder's over here going, I would just like to be a person. Like, I don't care that he's the prince. I would just, like to be acknowledged as a person. And then meets the prince, just like, yeah, no, he's pretty. But even Kai has the problem of things happen and he has to step up, and it's like, oh, you are not allowed to be Kai, the person who is struggling, because there's this plague going around, and here's a potential solution, but it means you lose yourself in the betterment of others. Like, is that okay? Are you okay with ceasing to be a person and an individual to benefit others? And what if that benefit is temporary and the potential harm is far more long lasting? So your villains in this are all kind of braided together. It is, Cinder has her villains, and then the prince has his villains, and then the plague is just this overwhelming, looming malaise of bad things. No one wants it. It is a bad thing. But yeah, that is how it goes. So, recommendations. These are very subjective this time around. I won't... they're always subjective, but like a lot. So, really likable characters. I tried to pick books where most, if not all, are extremely likable for me. This is why I say this is very subjective, because I liked most of the characters, most if not all of the characters in these books. But I am not everyone. It's why I do these. Book recommendations are subjective. So, Dealing with Dragons by Patricia C. Raid. It is the first in the Enchanted Forest Chronicles, which I should have put on here, but I forgot. You've got sassy princesses, you've got sassy dragons, you've got fantasy, fairy tale, magic, you've got You've got princesses who want to be rescued. You've got princesses who don't want to be rescued. You've got princes who are just like, but I'm supposed to rescue somebody. It's wonderful. Everyone in it is lovely. You've got a great cast. A great cast of characters there. Ballad and Dagger by Daniel Jose Older has really likable characters. I don't know how else to put that. Your main character is very relatable. There are a lot more named characters in that one, so it doesn't follow quite the same shorthand, but any character you meet for more than a sentence has personality, has some depth to him. There's one that comes to mind that we only know of who they are by who they're related to, but other than that, like, everybody is interesting. Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstern. You like everybody you're supposed to like, and there's two characters you don't like that you're not supposed to like, and there's a character that you're not supposed to like that you will probably wind up liking. That one is basically a web. Night Circus is less of a linear path and more of a very tangled web. It has, I think, 2 framing sequences, and one of those is only visible when you get to the last chapter, so it's a lot of fun. I will probably cover that one later. The plan is to cover that one later this year. But it is very good. All the characters have, if they aren't likable, they're at least interesting. Again, that sounds like a very low bar, but in so many books, you've got these characters that are neither. They are there because you need them there. They serve a purpose, but they are neither likable nor interesting. And then you have Redwall by Brian Jacques. How do I explain this? It is an animal story in that the characters are animals. And there are a ton of named characters. Excuse me. There are a ton of named characters, but the vibe is just likable. Like, yeah, there are characters that you're, like, ambivalent towards. It's a very large cast of characters, similar to Ballad and Dagger has a very large cast of characters. Redwall has an even bigger cast because you've got children. But it's just so much fun. The characters are interesting. The premise is nice. The story is tightly woven. There is a Tolkien level of description for things. And it's a lot of fun. It is a very, very fun read. And like I said, most of your characters are likable or interesting. There's a handful that are neither. There's a couple in there that you're like, I don't like you at all, but I don't think I'm supposed to, and you're not interesting, but I don't think you're supposed to be. There's a villain in particular who I'm like, you're not likable, you're not interesting, but you're a problem, and here you are. That is a book that has a primary villain and multiple antagonists that go along with. So if you don't want to split your I don't like you across multiple people, it's probably not for you. And then the recommendations for personhood. These are difficult. You'll notice 2 of these are from series and not from the first book. So these are books that deal with what makes a person, and what makes them a person. These are going to get a little spoilery for the books, but I'm going to try to keep that to a minimum because these are just quick recommendations. The first one is Eager by Helen Fox. Quick story. I found this book shortly after I saw I, Robot. Because for the record, I'm not typically a sci-fi person. Science fantasy, yes, that is basically what Cinder is science fantasy, where it's got this like lovely futuristic veneer and it's fantasy. It's built like a fantasy, even if it doesn't have magical elements. Eager is a bit more sci-fi than sci-fantasy, but it is a children's. Excuse me. Apparently, I'm gonna yawn. I'm very sorry. It is a children's novel that follows around a robot named Eager, and learning and how is Eager a person and stuff like that. High Wizardry is book 3 of the Young Wizards series by Diane Duane. Without spoiling the first 2 books, there is a character in this one who accidentally creates a sentient race. And are they people is kind of their character arc. What makes them people? What makes people people? What makes the girl who created these people, is she more of a person than they are because she made them? It kind of analyzes the creator god complex kind of thing. Excuse me. It's a lot of fun. I love it. It will be a little confusing if you don't read the first 2, but it's not impossible. You just won't know. There will be a couple other characters that show up and you'll be like, why are these people important? And it's like, well, they're important because of previous stories. The next book on my recommendations is Shattered Glass by Tamora Pierce. Again, Tamora Pierce. This is the 4th book in the Circle Opens quartet. This is the 2nd quartet in this series. So yes, I'm telling you to read book 8. But the Circle Opens books, you do not have to read those 4 books in order. There are snippets in Shattered Glass that will make sense if you've read the others, but you will not lose anything if you haven't. The caveat is you really should read the Circle of Magic first, because Shattered Glass deals a lot with when you have so much power, people look at you differently. Are you a person? Are you a monster? Are you a person? Are you a weapon? Are you just what your power can do, or do they actually see past that to the exhausted mage who is pouring their literal life into some of their craft? The other interesting thing about Shatterglass and Tamora Pierce and this entire series is it deals with magic on a small level. And by small I mean common. This is the series that involves things like thread magic, weather magic, plant magic, magic and metals. There's some that's just elemental, so that's like the high grand magic that most people would expect. It's got magic and baking. This one specifically has glass magic, so shatter glass. You've got carpentry, you've got stone, you've got dancing. Like, there's all these different normal, boring things that can do magic, can be magical, with the right crafter, basically. And that's the general principle of there are 2 kinds of magic in that world. Magic through things, a la dancing or glass or whatever, and magic through what we would think of as like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of wizard, where the magic is inside of you, and then you inscribe runes, and the runes are magical, but you have to fuel it with your own power. Yeah, that kind of magic. But yes, Shattered Glass explores personhood and how does power affect that? Can you still be a person with power, and still be a person? And then Goblin Secrets by William Alexander deals with can you be a person when you're othered? So you've got goblins, you've got children, you've got the city folk and the grannies folk, you've got those who listen to the river, those who don't, you've got all these lovely conflicting things. Um, and it comes down to, are they people? Are they monsters? Are they liars? Does being a liar inherently make you not a person? Um, I will admit, I really liked this one. I really liked all of these books. All 9 that I've talked about tonight, the 8 recommendations plus Cinder. I like all of these. I like the exploration of personhood. I like the exploration of characters. I like the very futuristic. There was a World War IV, and so that caused all of humanity to bind together and establish the new hierarchy. It caused ruination across the world, and then new civilizations to rise up, which is why you're in New Beijing. It's all very interesting. I really like the way it's approached. And yeah, if I have to read spacey things, give me science fantasy, where there is science and there is fantasy, over science fiction, where the science is the point. So yeah, that is the recommendations for this one. Um, it was a lot of fun. There we go. It was a lot of fun to do this one. Um, like I said, I read it in I think one day. Now it did take me most of an afternoon, but it was a great power read of, oh, I really liked this book. Let's read this book. Um, so yes, um, I absolutely recommend it. For a debut novel, it's really well written. Definitely got lots of practice in writing just for fun. Um, she does have, so the Lunar Chronicles is, there's a bunch of novels, and then I believe both of the graphic novels that she's put out are technically set in the same Lunar Chronicles world. So if you're more into graphic novels, I wish I could do these over graphic novels, but I've come to the realization and acceptance, unfortunately, that I won't be able to do that, simply because the art and illustration is so much, and coloration is so much a part of graphic novels, that without running into like major copyright problems, I wouldn't be able to cover those. But in this case, I can say I believe they're set in the same world. So go check out the graphic novels that are set in the world of the Lunar Chronicles. It's wires and something, I think. Hang on, let me make sure. Do I have it? Well, yeah. Wires and nerves. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if it'll make a lot of sense if you haven't read the others first, but it is an option. And I am all about giving options. Um, as far as sci-fi goes, I am not who you want to ask. I'm like, I don't mind the Perlandria cycle. That's fine. Um, I don't like Kilishandra, the Crystal Singer, and that's a science fantasy. A bit heavier. Well, that one's more of a science fiction, but it is a science fantasy, but it's not my cup of tea. Um, by Anne McCaffrey. I like the Dragon Riders of Pern up until you get into the sci-fi aspects of it. Um, at which point I'm like, give me the dragons. I'm trying to think, are there sci-fi that I like? There's some old Star Wars books that aren't canon anymore that I enjoyed. Um, the Courtship of Princess Leia, Darth Vader, the Jedi Academy. Young Jedi Knights books. Those were all great. But yeah, sci-fi isn't typically my thing. So I was very happy that this one just leaned straight into the hey, we're retelling a fairy tale. Here's all these like noticeable points of the fairy tale. Um, if I was gonna rate this in a Cinderella lineup, strictly books, not movies, um, I would put it right behind Ella Enchanted. It's they are both very nice about handling it as an adaptation, and as a retelling. So to me, Ella Enchanted doesn't bury the lead. I have seen someone do a review where they were like, "I didn't know it was a retelling of Cinderella," and I'm like, "How? It's called Ella Enchanted." Um, there we go. um, but they were like, "Oh, I didn't know until the very end," and I'm like, "Your prince's name was Charming." I mean, it was Charmant, but your prince's name was Charming. Your lady's name was Ella. Like, how did we miss this? Um, but I would put that at the top of my list. Cinder is probably right behind it, because uh, it doesn't hide what it is. It's like, hey, by the way, this is Cinderella. Here's this old gasoline powered car. It looks like a pumpkin. It has mice living in it. Um, Her foot is too small at the beginning. She has to get a new foot. Um, there's a ball festival coming up. She wants to go. Well, here's the requirements to go, and like also stepmom's not gonna let you go. Doesn't really matter. It's delightful. I would definitely put this one right behind Ella Enchanted. I know I've read other Cinderella retellings. It's really popular. A, it's really popular, and B, it shows up all the time. I guess so. School of Good and Evil has a Cinderella element. Ever After High. I would put Ever After High, and then I would put School of Good and Evil. And I think Princess Academy has a Cinderella, and there's a few. There's a Cinderella, the Fairy Godmother. Oh, where would I put the Fairy Godmother? So the Fairy Godmother is okay. I would put it after Ever After High, and that seems disingenuous of me. But there's so much going on in that. And it's not really about Cinderella, it's about the Fairy Godmother. That seems disingenuous a bit. So, unironically, Ella Enchanted, The School for Good and Evil, Ever After High, like all three of the Ever After High novels, The Princess Academy, those are all children's books. They're all wonderful. They are all like quick reads. Ella Enchanted is like maybe an hour for me, but that is partially because I've read it so many times that it's literally falling apart. I will be very sad when that book dies, and I have to buy a new one and go find the cover I want. Cinder is a YA novel. Um, it's still going above two of those children's novels because I think it's good. I think it's done very well. Um, and honestly, it's a younger demographic than you'd think. There's nothing other than depictions of death by illness. There's nothing horribly well, I say that. There's a couple of problematic things, but there's nothing horribly beyond the pale. Like, a PG-13 is kind of what you're looking at as far as where I would put that book on a rating scale. And then The Fairy Godmother is adult, and it is dense. It is wonderfully dense. It is a good dense, but hoo boy, that is not a quick read, even if it is entertaining. Yeah. Well, and if we're talking movies, I think Ever After is going to forever be at the top of my list. Always, always, always. Forever. I want that dress. Let's see. Oh, so the other books in the series. So without actually reading the back covers of them, because spoilery, the other books in the series, I have guesses as to which fairy tales they are. I'm fairly certain Little Red Riding Hood. One of them appears to be. It is either the Children of Lear, which I doubt, or it is the Swan Princess. Or Swan Lake. I could be either of those, but since Swan Lake is what the Swan Princess is based off of, like, it's not that far off. It appears to be a swan maiden, just based off of the title. That may not be true. For all I know, it's yet another Cinderella. And then there's one that I am not sure. Part of me says the Snow Queen, but part of me isn't sure on that one either. Is that all of them? Hang on. Oh, the box is right next to me. Hey, box set, come here. Oh, I can't pick you up one-handed. You know it's a good book series when you can't pick up the box set one-handed. One of these is very much so a Snow White. And maybe Hansel and Gretel? Look, like I said, without like reading the backs and actually seeing what they are, that is just my guess from titles and looking at the covers. For the record, if anyone ever tells you, oh, but you can't, don't judge a book based on its cover. That's why books have covers, honey. Like, it's not a universal truth, but if you don't like the cover, that's a valid reason to not read a book. I will say that. And the cover can always change, and then you can be like, oh, now this book looks interesting. And sometimes you'll look at the cover and be like, this looks interesting, and you'll read it and you'll be very disappointed. Yeah. It's annoying. But yeah, no, base your opinions on covers. It's perfectly valid. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And honestly, if you're like, oh, I don't know about this book, go online, look up the other covers. Do the other covers look interesting? If yes, grab whatever cover you can and read it. If you absolutely hate the cover, grab another book copy later. Or you can be like me and be stubborn and hold out for the cover you want and then be like, it's out of print in that cover. They've changed the covers twice since the cover you liked. Just grab the book. That is, so real talk, that is my problem with Shattered Glass, is I have a cover for Shattered Glass that I don't like. Because they changed from, like, illustrations to, like, oh gosh, I hope this time is over, but there for a while they were doing, like, photo manipulation-esque covers for all sorts of fantasy. And I kind of hated it. But especially when they did it to the Circle Opens Quartet, and I'm like, that's not my cover. I want the illustration. I want the illustration, man. Too bad. I don't have that cover. I had to, I bit the bullet and got the photo manipulation because I was tired of not having that book. And I think I own all of that series. Hang on. I've got an entire shelf of Tamora Pierce. No, I'm missing one. Huh. Alright, I am missing one of that series. That needs to go on the good old list of things I need. Yes, but absolutely big fan of Tamara Pierce. Read those. Big fan of covers and cover art. That's not true either. I was about to say, you don't always have to say that with graphic novels, but yes, with graphic novels, at least open the cover and see what the actual art looks like. Because it's entirely possible that the art is right up your alley. But the cover artist might be different. But if you don't like the cover art and you don't like the first page of art, then graphic novel is probably not your thing. That being said, I have read classic literature as graphic novels because I had no interest in the literature. And when your courses are like, you must read this piece of classic literature, and I'm like, cool, can I read it as a graphic novel? And they're like, yes? You said yes. I'm gonna go get it. For anyone wondering, Marvel Comics has a line of classic literature as graphic novels. Go check it out if you want, like, Sense and Sensibility and stuff like that. I don't know if they have Frankenstein or Dracula. Also, if you're going to read graphic novel versions of either of those, make sure they're actually the literature and not just a story with the monsters, because both of those are out of copyright and therefore public domain. So what else is things about Cinder or I'm not sure that this okay, so I haven't read the rest of the series, obviously. I'm a little concerned and amused. I'm also highly amused as to how this whole series will hit. So when is the last book published? Let me check that right quick, guys. Let me reach down here. I put the collection back down, guys. I put the box set down. Yeah, okay. Oh, that's a very different cover than the rest. Are you a different artist? Nosy people want to know. Are you a different artist? No. It just looks like a different artist. Huh. Okay. When was this published? 2015. That's interesting. So, the last book in the box set was published in 2015. The first book was published in 2012. I have a feeling that this series is going to hit a little different for the modern audience than it would have back in 2015. Because, a worldwide plague and quarantine happening, because that's a thing, and, the hospital set up and trying to find a vaccine. Well, they don't call it a vaccine, they call it a cure. Yeah. I feel like that's would hit a bit different in the modern landscape than it would have at that time. Um to be fair, okay, to be fair to the author, to Marissa Meyer, it's not like that's not a common thing. Um Well, wait, no, that's not true. I was about to say, because Resident Evil has had viruses for forever, but the last two Resident Evil games have been mushrooms. Or mold. I think mold, not mushrooms. Mold people. So that's uh huh. You know, when I stop and think about Resi stopped doing viruses and started doing mold people. Hmm. Is this because the landscape changed about? Oh gosh. Guys, we're fine with mold spores and mushroom colonies and clickers. And all the Last of Us Resi Village stuff. And six, seven, seven, six. How many Resident Evils are no? Six is all the storylines. Seven is Louisiana, and eight is Village. That's it. That feels right. We're gonna call that right. If I am wrong, I am very sorry to the Resi fans. I watch other people play. I do not play scary games. um, but yeah, now that I think about that, that is a shift that has happened. Huh. Was that a conscious effort or just a maybe we don't want to talk about this? Or it could have nothing to do with it because games take a long time to develop and they may have been in that shift. Sometimes correlation is not causation. Just an observation. Also, I would like to point out, fun fact, the last book in this box set is called Fairest. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's Snow White. If it is, it will be the second Snow White book I have on my shelves called Fairest. The other one is a Gail Carson Levine. Which does mean I will be unfairly judging it against a sequel companion book to Ella Enchanted, and that is horrendously unfair and going to be hard to put up with. But I bet it's going to land in the same spot Cinder did, which is second. Well, I guess I should say, if you're buying the box set, I don't know why I'm advertising for this, but if you buy the box set, they are not all chronological. Fairest, for example, is a prequel. And I knew it was a prequel because I read Cinder. like I don't even have to read the back of Ferris to know Ferris is a prequel. Because like I said, I've read Cinder. I know how that goes, and I know some of the characters involved. So it's like, oh, here's this other book called Ferris. Yeah, prequel, done, moving on. I'm trying to think. Are there any other books that I am super judgmental of the covers on? The Percy Jackson covers. Okay. I like the originals. I don't mind the new ones. Or the in between ones. And I think the newest ones are my least favorite, if they're the ones I'm thinking of. Like the super new ones. Don't give me movie covers. Like, I think I've said this before, but please don't give me movie covers on my books. If I'm buying Lord of the Rings books, I don't want Orlando Bloom on the cover of my book. Like, yeah, he's pretty. Yeah, Legolas is great, but like, give me an illustration. Or if you must be one of those minimalistic ones that just has the ring on it, sure, give me the one ring. That's fine. I can deal. Color code the books, please, but I can deal. But yeah, it's kind of annoying. So Lockwood and Company is now, or was now, I don't know if it's still going, a Netflix series, and like the cover for The Screaming Staircase I think had changed, and I'm like, why are you doing this? You had such a good cover. Actually, you've had two really good covers, and like, don't change it. Like, if you're gonna stick a sticker on it that says now a Netflix show, that's fine. I'm not gonna stop that. It's not untrue, but like, don't change my cover for that. The Diane Duane books, actually, another book series I've talked about today. The Diane Duane books have gone through some variation. They started out as illustrated, and then they got the weird photo manipulation ones, and then they did something else for like 2 books, and then went back to the photo manipulations. And I was okay with the photo manipulations on those because I couldn't find them any other way. Because the new ones were being written that way. I will not go back and replace my old ones. I will not. I refuse. I have the first 3 books of that series as an omnibus. I have book 4 as an illustrated cover. And starting with book 5, I have the photo manipulation covers. I am not going to replace the originals. Also, my originals no longer match the current first 3 books of the series that were rewritten for some obvious reasons. If you've ever wondered, hey, is there a problem with setting a fantasy story in a modern setting, a la the Young Wizard series, a la the Cassandra Clare. Is it Cassandra Clare? I think it is. That feels right. Holly Black is fantasy. Cassandra Clare is the... Yeah, it's Cassandra Clare. It's like, oh, are there problems with setting these in like real places in modern times? It's like, yes. Yes, there are, because real things can happen to those places. And then you have 2 options. Either roll with it, or re-release those books with modifications to make them match going forward. Diane Duane chose option 1 at first and then option 2 currently. I don't know if you can still find the ones I have. I would be very interested in that. I do know that mine have some weird continuity fuzzies, which I'm pretty sure are attributed to the reworks. But we've also got like really pretty alien boys who just like eat sugar all day. So take that as you will. If you read the Young Wizard series and get to like book 8, 8, 7, 8, one of those, you meet really pretty aliens that eat sugar, and are hilarious. There's like a foreign exchange program. It's great. Also, additional plug for the Young Wizard series. The aliens, not all of them look like humans. Like the pretty one, yeah, mostly looks like a human. But like there's one that looks like a Christmas tree. He's not, but he looks like a Christmas tree. Oh, I can't remember what the other guy is. How they describe him. They give this great description that he's like these 3 things put together, but like none of these things at all. And it is the best description I've ever heard of an alien, where you're like, I can't describe it because we don't have the words, but you smash these 3 things together and it looks like that, except it doesn't look like that. But that's the best we can do. I absolutely adore that kind of hey, aliens aren't just super pretty humans. But they've also got some of those. So it's like, oh, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that there's, you know, bipedal, golden skinned, fair haired, blue eyed creatures with untold levels of magic. Yes. And they are arrogant. And we kind of like them. Because they're a mood, man. Oh. And like just like I said, there's like a foreign exchange program with some of the aliens, and some of them go to Earth, and some of the humans go to other worlds, and it is delightful. Getting Shiny to blend in is great, because it's like, oh, he looks like a supermodel. Everyone thinks he's gorgeous. He's swarmed by girls everywhere he goes. Meanwhile, the hosting family is like, we're just going to the mall. Can you not? That is also the book that has wizards that are whales, or not the book, but the series that has wizards that are whales. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of math and science in that book. There's a lot of myth and mystery in that book. There's a lot of humor in that book. And there's a lot of like really deep emotions and dealing with things. How do you deal with death when you have like phenomenal cosmic powers, but you can't save the people you love? What's the point? Like, why do you have these abilities if death happens? What happens when someone with that kind of power breaks their oath? It's very interesting. It's also somehow I'm talking about that series way more than I'm talking about Cinder. It is a series that deals with a bit of an existential crisis of what if the goodest good and the baddest bad exist on every single planet, every single world. There is a iteration of the goodest good and the baddest bad, and the primal driving thing for all of those is called the choice. and you are not doomed to fail. It is not an inevitable. It is an unlikely. um to be fair, that doesn't start showing up until like book 6 or 7, when you really get into interacting with some of the aliens. The first bit is mostly on planet, um, and you're dealing with, oh, hiding, you're a wizard from your parents, and oh, I can hear my dog. Poncho is great. I will always be a cat person, but Poncho, Ponch the dog, is a fantastic character. He is wonderful and deserves all the hugs, and I love him. I'm trying to think if there's another, like, let's take your expectations and either lean hard or throw them out the window. Princesses of Myth, to an extent. Excuse me. I swear it's having this light in my face. The Princesses of Myth, to an extent, but you have to actually know them to recognize it. It's not like a universal thing, kind of like fairy tales are. Everyone knows Cinderella. Everyone knows Snow White. Everyone knows Hansel and Gretel. You may not know the Swan Princess or the Children of Lear or the Swan Maiden Tales. So, like, valid. But also, that's not what most of these things are about. Yeah. I enjoyed Cinder. I really liked it. Would absolutely recommend. It's a fun read. It's not too sloggy. The world building is very much built in. That sounds dumb. It's not heavy-handed. There are a couple of places where they go into the politics of the Lunars, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so boring. But they're explaining it to the prince, so like it's a reasonable amount of exposition dump and lore dump because he's gonna need to know that. Like I said, most of the stuff you get about cyborgs is, it's not like, oh, let me tell you this thing that you should already know. It's you see how this affects people, Cinder, and make inferences from that. Oh, all these people are like, oh, don't let your children play near the cyborg, or oh, don't talk to her, or haven't I told you don't get near her? And it's like, look, she wears gloves to hide her metal hand. She has long pants to hide the metal leg. It's like, you're the worst, lady. Too bad. Cinder is great. She is sassy and sarcastic and lovely and wonderful. So yeah, I would highly recommend reading Cinder. Get the cover you want. Rent it from a library. I think there are audiobooks for it too. I say that. I'm not a huge audiobook fan and I can't speak for who reads it. But if that's your jam, they are available for the entire Lunar Chronicles, or at least the first 4, if not the rest. So yeah, I should choose right now which book I'm doing for next time. Oh, I can do. Yeah, we'll do that one. So I know that Yeah, we'll do that one. It'll be a good time. Um, Unless I've forgotten my own. Look, at some point I'm gonna have to write this schedule down and not just have a schedule planned out in my head. Um, until I remember to do that. uh, look forward to something a little more mythic next time. A little less fairy tale, a little more myth. Um, and it'll be a children's novel instead of a young adult. Although I stand by what I said, Cinder skews like PG-13. 13 and up, absolutely read this. You'll have a blast. Um, yeah. So with that, hope you have a good night.